This podcast right here, the new San Francisco treat. This is Corey, and this is the O the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to episode 123 of the O the Anthem podcast. Whether you're listening to us at otheanthem.com, which you absolutely should, obviously, on the podcast page, where you'll find all of our episodes. Hey, and while you're there, click on over to the merch page. Check out some of the merchandise we have. Check out the short films page. And, hey, go back to the homepage, sign up for the mailing list. Make sure that you're on the mailing list so you get the most up-to-date information. Or maybe you're listening to us on a third-party platform like Google Play Music or
iTunes,
Stitcher, Dogcatcher, or
Pocket Cast.
Yeah. And if you're able on those third-party platforms, give us a rating and a review. Helps us climb the charts, helps other people find the podcast so they can enjoy this sweet, sweet content that we're giving you.
Or if you just generally like us and you see that we've posted like, hey, new episode 123. Retweet, share, like.
Of course.
All those things help.
At O the Anthem on all your social networks. And of course, if you're listening to us, you've already broken the first rule of O the Anthem, which is download, don't listen. But we appreciate you anyway. But you are missing out on half the show. So go ahead over to...
It called me a Mick.
Go ahead over to otheanthem. Go over to youtube.com/otheanthem and check out the video. We have video for this and every episode. Well, the more recent episodes, including Corey's face, my beautiful face, the information bar, which is going to come in real handy in this episode, and of course the sidebar over there on Corey's right, your left, which will allow you to skip down to different parts of the podcast. If you find something that you're coming here for one specific topic, you can find it right there. And hey, while you're on YouTube, give us a like and a subscribe so you get the most up-to-date videos as soon as they can become available. So, and Corey's reference to being a Mick there, he's not a super racist. Okay, well, in this case, he's not being a super racist. So, if you want to find out more about that, you have to get access to the pre-roll. And how would somebody do that, Corey?
You would go to patreon.com/otheanthem and then donate $3.
So for $3 a month, they get access to the pre-roll for 4 episodes per month.
Yeah.
And we usually run half hour. About a half hour.
20, 30 minutes, yeah.
And you get some conversation, stuff that we would never talk about in the podcast in general, but we feel is still fine to share to our hardcore supporters.
More conversational.
Yeah. Less podcast, more conversational. So go on over to patreon.com/otheanthem. You can become a supporter for as little as $1 a month, but at the $3 level, you get access to the pre-roll. At the higher levels, you get even better stuff.
Like a bonus podcast, which this month was, I think, on point.
Yeah.
Because we went deep into the writing process and what we're working on. And I enjoyed listening to it over again.
Right.
Before the release.
So, yeah, so if you want the inside track on what's going on with us, stuff that we don't even talk about on the podcast because it's in process and we don't really want to be public about it, we share that stuff with our supporters on Patreon. So go on over to patreon.com/otheanthem and sign up. And check out all the stuff we have there. So, and of course, as Corey mentioned last week, sometimes we just release a little bonus stuff to everybody on Patreon. So even if you're at the $1 level or at the 2 cents level, if you give us your 2 cents every month, sometimes you'll be able to get bonus features just for being a supporter. So
Yep. So I started off this episode with the San Francisco joke.
Right, which anyone over the or under the age of, 26 may not get.
Yeah.
Because that commercial kind of fell out of favor.
Yeah. I think people still are aware of it, though. I think it's still known of.
I was trying to think. Oh, rice-a-roni, the San Francisco treat. Ding,
yeah,
ding.
but I mean, like, I imagine if somebody said, "What's the San Francisco treat?" Most people would know rice-a-roni.
I had to think about it, but yeah, okay.
Okay, well, either way,
Uncle Ben's, is that what it is?
I'm in San Francisco no, actually, I'd be back by now. Shit. When we would normally be recording,
yes,
I'm in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So, seeing the Orioles and the Giants and my brother to a lesser degree.
Love you, Brandon.
Love you, Brandon. Brendan's live reaction. Shut up. Yeah, so I'm in San Francisco when we'd normally be recording, so we're doubling up episodes from the week before, in case you're wondering why I'm wearing the same shirt 2 weeks away. And Rob, of course, is always wearing this shirt.
I wear the same shirt because, hey, stay woke, y'all. And a big thank you to Flash of the Anthem Alliance podcast. New episodes of that podcast are available every Friday at anthemalliancepodcast.com and on your RSS feeders of choice. And, of course, it's a sister show to Dirty Shore Underground. Dirty Shore Underground podcast is available at dirtyshoreunderground.com. New episodes every Thursday. So that's three podcasts on this network that you can check out. But Flash made me the shirt, so I'm rocking it to keep awareness up. But so if in the past week...
So to make sure everyone stays woke.
Yes, exactly. If in the past week the big one hit San Francisco and you've seen me posting R.I.P. Corey and we'll miss you, bruh. It's not that he's back from the dead. It's that we recorded this at a time.
I expect you to...
I feel like I should not go wood.
I expect you to find some way to still release the podcast, even though you probably have no idea how it happens.
No, I do. I do. It's. I have WordPress sites myself. I know how it works.
As soon as you'd go to my computer, it'd be like Zoolander, where you're just like, how do you get in this magic box?
Files? There's files in here? Oh, they're inside the computer.
We got them right here.
Yeah, so
yeah.
Corey went to San Francisco, so we are giving you guys a special treat this week. We're talking about a little more in depth about a couple of topics that we've brought up over the past couple weeks, one of which got Corey really passionate. And let's start with that.
All right. The Mayfair. As of the time of recording, still standing, which is hopefully how it remains when I come back. Because there was a very nice open letter in the Baltimore Sun that was released with an idea for how to save the Mayfair. I guess maybe not a fully formed idea, but it's still better than the absolutely nothing that the city of Baltimore has done for the last 30 years.
And I have to say, thank you to the writer of that opinion piece, because clearly...
I'm going to pull it up just so I can give her the proper credit.
Clearly, she is a listener to the podcast, because if you were to read the opinion piece, which I'm sure Corey will put in the show notes, it basically is tick for tick the complaints that Corey brought up in our discussion back in the previous episode.
Just not as screamy.
Not as screamy, not as emotional, maybe a little... But that's the value of typing it up and not speaking about it, because you get that moment to be like, screw it, brr! And then you come back and you're like, okay, so I'm not going to put that. We're not all Donald Trump on Twitter, so we're not just going to... stream of thought.
Megan Elkrat.
So thank you, Megan. I'm sure you're listening to us right now, and that's what inspired you. I just love that you're inspiring people all over the world here. Melvin Morris stories, Mayfair stories. Good God.
Well, I mean, I will certainly, let her know. Like, I'll find her on the Twitter. I'll be like, hey, you don't know me, but we talked extensively about your article 2 weeks later.
Or actually 2 weeks before it came out. Like I said, it's exactly the points you were bringing up before.
Well, yeah, I guess I can send her both.
Yeah. She's like, hey, I'm glad somebody else is thinking about this.
Well, clearly she's already seen the first part. She's writing articles about...
Yeah. Like I said, she's clearly a fan. So thank you, Megan. And hey, maybe head on over to patreon.com/showtheanthem.
It would be just our luck if she had heard it. Yeah. Like, she's just cruising through iTunes and she heard it, and then she wrote the piece and she's just like, I heard on some podcast. I'm like, damn it, you!
Come on,
why not me?
But yeah, so there was a plan for the Mayfair now, and we went extensively into the history of the Mayfair and how it came to that, and I don't want to get Corey all worked up.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it several times. Yeah, we talked about it like in passing.
Who knows? How
many times? Dozens of times. We talked about it extensively as far as like the history is concerned when they almost burned it to the ground.
Yes.
And then a couple weeks ago we talked about it in terms of the BDC,
because they announced that they were going to take it down.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Or at least the back 3/4 of it. But Megan's plan is to basically convert the Mayfair into an open air art space. Right. You made the comparison to the Globe Theater in London.
Right. Now,
the famous Globe, which is of Shakespeare fame.
And if anybody's ever been to London, essentially the style of these theaters, it had to be indoorsy, because you had to be able to control people coming in and watching, so they would have to pay. Right. But there was no lights, so there's no roof. At least in the center portion over the stage. And, of course, Shakespeare performed in the round. So there were seats all around the middle.
And the aristocrats, the wealthy, would be covered in the parts around. And then the poor people who stood in the mosh pit, if you will, of the globe would be exposed to the elements if there was rain and
But
such.
the important thing
But it
here
doesn't
is-
rain in London, so I don't
Right,
know
of
why they
course.
possibly ever worry about that sort of thing.
Same as Baltimore. That's why I would work here. But so the idea of an open air venue is coming back the same way that a lot of those things are coming back. Like, wouldn't it be nice to have this this type of venue where you can look up and see the star that you can see from the star that you can see from downtown Baltimore? Yeah, underneath the lights of a show. But it's a good mixing of modern and that open air type venue.
Yeah. Now, I do have complaints.
Okay.
Most notably, who is going to pay for it?
Right.
Listen, if somebody read the article and got really inspired, like, I don't know, Kevin Plank,
Come on, Plank.
and decided to purchase the Mayfair,
Yeah.
maybe turn some of that sweet TIFF money into a open air art space,
Listen, we won't fight the TIFF
Yeah.
for the Mayfair.
I'll totally support that one. Totally support that one.
I only need $1.4 billion in a TIFF for the Mayfair. Yeah.
Listen, it's going to get up and walk to different parts of the town depending on what we're playing.
That's fine.
Yeah.
If you can do Plank, I believe in you. I think you can do this. Yeah.
When the light rail's coming by and it's a little bit too loud, we're just going to move the Mayfair to a quieter location.
Oh, I bet you they could figure out how to dampen the noise, too. Oh, but with the open air, that would be weird.
I'm sure there's a way.
Yeah.
You know what you could do? The courtroom white noise machine up at the top.
Noise
Just-
canceling.
Yeah, just like put it at the top and just like have it like out the... Yeah, just blank
I like
out that noise. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. See, look, we're problem solving already. Just give
We've
us
already
the-
come up with a solution
Give us
to
the
a
$30
problem.
million. We'll buy the building. We'll renovate it totally for you, and then you can, use it.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll have it, but you can use it.
Just come by and just admire it. I'm sure you like art.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. Yeah, I'm sure he's got plenty of
I
art.
like to imagine that Kevin Plank is kind of like from Dodgeball.
You mean
Ben Stiller's
Ben
character
Stiller's
from that.
character.
Yeah, I can't remember the character's name.
I got
It's
art.
me literally taking the bull by the horns.
I bet Plank has that image in his office. It was
Are you-
inspired by this movie back in the 90s.
Are you reading the dictionary? Sometimes you got to work out the brain too.
Anyway, so let's get back on track. Open air venue.
Hold on a second, because we're doing dodgeball
Okay.
lines. Just my favorite, just one real quick. And you know my fitness consigliere, Michelle.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. I don't
No, I like that one better. I like my fitness consigliere.
Oh God!
Anyway,
All right,
back on
so-
topic. Back on topic.
So Megan has proposed, has made a proposal for an open air venue, but
Yes.
it's a little more detailed than that. Before we get into who's going to pay for it and how, what she said and what we didn't know, I think before, is that they actually haven't condemned the the portion in the very back.
Yeah.
And so we knew the foyer and
Fly tower.
The fly tower in the back.
Yeah.
The foyer is fine. Apparently, the fly tower in the back is fine. But what they've said is we're just going to raise everything behind the foyer
Well, okay, so
or foyer, depending on who you are.
essentially, what the roof portion is still on the fly tower.
Yeah.
I don't know what shape the roof is in
The
that area.
The story said it was fine.
Okay. Well, I mean, I had to take her word for it because I haven't heard anything from the contractors.
Let's go in and investigate. I think we'll be fine.
Just
right?
go into the building. They took down the condemn sign, so I assume it's safe now.
Yeah, it's fine, totally fine.
It's probably good. It's probably they fixed whatever's wrong.
yeah.
Um,
The big hole in the roof.
yeah. I think my number one thought in that regard, though, is that while you could technically build like a stabilizing brace, essentially to keep the theater portion from caving in on itself, there's so much money that would have to go into stabilizing the floor because a lot of the roof beams have gone directly into the basement.
Where the old Turkish bath is. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, you know, if you're going to renovate a historic building like that, while it still stands as currently constituted, you'd have to probably respect the historical nature of it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know exactly what the codes would call for on that sort of thing, but I imagine that restoring the Turkish bath would probably be part of said.
It wouldn't have to be restored, but you would just probably not be able to touch it. It'd be like, okay, so redo the floor, and if you're gonna do something with the basement, then you have to, take into account the history.
Right.
If you're not going to do anything with the basement, then that's fine.
I wouldn't put it past the city of Baltimore to have it be very specific and very horrible, because
let's make it difficult for people.
Those like older townhomes and stuff like that, the turn of the century 1800 townhomes and stuff. You can't even put like a flag mount on the outside.
Yeah, because that makes sense.
You have to have like the same phrase on the top and stuff like that. And there's apparently only 3 people who really do it the way that it's supposed to be done, and it's a whole racket. But
is one of them Sagamore?
Maybe, yeah. Sagamore phrase.
Yeah.
I would probably say that if we're going to spend money on fixing it a little bit, it probably just makes sense to fix it all the way.
Okay.
That's my sort of quick take feeling on it.
Yeah.
And hey, you could have, as noted earlier in a previous episode of the podcast, you could have spent some money at some point along the way.
Relatively little.
Yeah.
Money. Yeah.
And maintained it rather than let it fall down. So if we're going to put that money in now, we might as well just go whole hog.
See, for a fiscal conservative, that is a very U.S. government response. It's like, listen, if we're going to spend $15 million, let's spend $30 million and just do it right. You know what I mean? Because literally putting a roof on the thing is going to double the expense. It's going to double the expense.
It's not going to double it.
It will double the expense.
I feel like most of the expense would go to... you'd probably have to work on the foundation.
Yeah.
Stabilize that. Stabilize the walls. Apparently there's cracks in the walls, too.
From the demolition next door.
Yeah. And that would have to be repaired. If you're putting all this money in to fix every other element of the building...
Right.
I feel like a roof would be...
Okay, so listen, Flat Earther. I'm going to explain something to you here. Gravity is funny. It does exist.
Yeah.
And it pulls things towards the center of the earth.
Yeah.
So keeping walls up is relatively simple. And these buildings from this period were actually built as... they weren't envelope, so they weren't being held together. They were built standalone, which is why, even though it's in horrible disrepair, it's still standing. Because... even if 3 walls fell down, the other, 1 wall would still be standing up. It's not dependent on anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So the internal frame is really to just secure all the walls to that frame.
Right.
If you then need to make that building load-bearing for a roof, it greatly increases the cost. Now, shoring up the foundation so that people can be inside and that the walls will be supported, relatively easy. Making it so that it supports the weight of a roof is very difficult. Because essentially what you're going to do is you're going to be adding in tons of material above. Because keep in mind, although it's historic, you have to both match the current building requirements and match the look of the historic.
Right.
So you wouldn't be, it would be very difficult, it would be very expensive, and it'd be very heavy. So you couldn't put it on top of the walls that are already there. Essentially what they would have to do is build new walls inside of the existing walls. Build a new building inside of the existing building, and then put a roof on that building. And then the outside walls just become a facade. Whereas what they're proposing now is you put a skeleton inside, fix the walls to the skeleton, and then there's no more work that needs to be done after that. You secure the foundation, great. If that foundation needs to bear the weight of 700 tons of material on top, you now have to do much more work to the foundation because the walls are still standing. So what the foundation work that you need to do is to secure the skeleton and to re-secure the floor so that people can actually sit on it. So that's why the cost goes up. And I assure you, when you think about lowering equipment in and taking stuff out by hand, which, by the way, folks, probably going to be necessary because I don't know any other way without demolishing one of those walls that you get anything out of there.
Yeah, because it's a tall building too. It's
200 foot lumber poking through the floor.
Yeah,
that essentially you're going to have to cut up and take out the front door.
Yeah,
but even with all that, having to put a roof on it would make it exponentially more expensive.
Right.
But if you put in a good framework, and then later on you say, look how profitable this is. Now, if you relax these historical requirements, or you relax the staying up with the modern whatever, the flat roof, and it has to be graded at 5%, and it has to be white, and all the stuff that you have to do. One or the other, but not both. Then we can do it cheaply. And we can just lay something on top, essentially pole building style. You could put a steel roof on top of that metal framework, and then good, we have a roof. That's great. You can make a retractable roof. Hey, Plank, you want to make an investment? Retractable roof.
Yeah.
But if you want to get it open and say, hey, look how good this is and how it's great for the community, and it becomes, by the way, an anchor for the Howard Street corridor, of which the Bromo Seltzer Tower is essentially all that there is right now.
Well, I mean, they've
and the Goddess.
They've been trying to get it going for a while now.
So you get Bromo on
the
one end.
Bromo Tower has done well for itself, and then not much else is really. I mean, there's things that are starting. I think there's a dance company that's opening on the 400 block of Howard Street.
Dance like Goddess or dance like
ballet dance.
Oh, okay, all right.
Like a dance studio.
This episode brought to you by the Goddess.
And then there is like I haven't actually been in there, but I looked through the window as I was driving by yesterday and saw like what looked like either a rap show or free like slam poetry.
Okay.
Happening in a building on the south end of the 400 block of Howard.
Okay, good.
So,
but you know what? If you have the Mayfair, it then anchors the other end of the corridor.
Yeah.
And now let's work to the middle.
Right.
And also it means you can essentially what we have is kind of a Wild West situation on Howard Street now, let's be honest. It's like it's a little rough through that area. Mm-hmm. But you get the Bromo Seltzer Tower on one end, you get the Mayfair on the other. Maybe put some apartments, apartments there next to the Mayfair.
Well, there are apartments next to the Mayfair.
I know.
The Congress Hotel.
I know. I'm saying renovate them.
Yeah.
And you have, cheap artist
spaces.
It's
a really nice building.
I know.
Yeah.
But we go in there, we make it artist spaces, basically go back to the episode where we talked about this, about renovating the whole block. You have an anchor on one end, you have the Bromo Seltzer on the other, with the Redwood Apartments right next door, and then work your way to the middle. And in the middle is that beautiful Hutzler Brothers building that if I ever take over the world, that would be a great headquarters building because it's like black slate on the outside.
Great evil headquarters.
Yeah, it's black slate on the outside, and it's like 10 stories tall. It's fantastic.
I imagine it would make for a really great building if you like shot straight up.
Oh yeah,
like if you tilted the camera straight up and like went up along the building, and then a single bolt of lightning.
Oh yeah,
like ominous, like ooh,
and great for an escape because you can make like a little. Flywheel thing.
Yeah.
So when the train comes by, you jump out the window, down onto the train, and you're gone. Right on down to the 200 block where it stops.
Just like a zip line.
Yeah, zip line. It's an evil headquarters building. I'm telling you.
But much like the light rail, it has to stop at lights. Goddamn traffic.
All right. But no. It's you want to develop that corridor.
Yeah.
The way that we develop corridors is you have anchors on two ends and you fill in the middle. Malls. When you build a mall, you get the anchor stores first.
Right. You get your Nordstroms and you get your Macy's.
And then I know, as a hot topic, that I want to put my store there. Because when mom's going from Nordstrom's to Macy's, little shithead kids are going to be like, hey, Mom, let's go in Hot Topic and buy some cool T-shirt. Good. That's where you want to be. But you don't want to be there if you're... I guess something else. I don't know. But
Joanne Fabrics?
No, because that actually would be probably... Macy's and Nordstrom are good.
Yeah.
And the mom stuff would be in the middle.
Yeah.
But if you're the Circuit City or the Radio Shack, maybe you don't want to be there. You want to be over by Sears because dads are going into Sears.
Right.
To go to the hardware and you keep... So you get your anchors and you...
Your Suncoast Video.
Suncoast Video. All the shops that were going in my mind, it was like not all 90s. I'm like, what is in a mall now? I don't even know what's in there.
Are there even malls anymore?
But no, do the Mayfair, do it right, but you don't have to put the roof on. Make it an open air venue.
You don't have to. And you know what? I brought up the design for that Central Park concept.
Yeah.
The sunken park. I think it's really cool. It's not at all possible.
Well, they did raise the city of Chicago by 6 feet. The entire city raised by 6 feet after the Great Chicago Fire. So maybe the answer isn't to sink the park.
To raise
the entire rest of the city.
Well, then if you raise the city, too, you don't have to worry about the melting of the ice caps and the...
I think we just solved this problem. Here's what we do. We shut down everything, the second floors of everything, right?
Yeah.
We just build new streets. Build new streets that are 2 stories tall, elevated highways. And then we put new trains in there. It becomes the new underground.
Yeah.
Everybody lives... And then basically we live in a world that's kind of like the Fifth Element, where like there is an underworld and then an above the world.
Something tells me that if we can get rid of the Yankees, we've just fixed New York.
Except for Grand Central,
if we can get rid of the Yankees
and the Port Authority bus station.
If we can get rid of the Port Authority bus station, get rid of all the corporatization and the shitty ass people, we fixed New York.
Okay, so we're just gonna raise it. We're going to take the Trump tactic and just drop a nuke on it. Wouldn't a nuke fix this? Can we just put a nuke on that? I think it would do it.
Nuclear weapons aren't the answer for everything, Donald.
Childhood hunger? Can we just bomb them? I feel like just bomb them.
Can we just nuke these kids? I applaud Megan's idea. And if anything were to happen to the Mayfair for the positive, I support it almost no matter what it is. Right. As long as that building stands, and not just the facade.
That's a damn shame.
The only possible benefit I've thought of anything other than just the facade staying, just the front of the house, the lobby staying, is that you probably would be able to loosen up the historical standards for whatever you would rebuild in the back.
Right.
But, I mean, that's not really a benefit unless you were planning on building some sort of, like, modern technological masterpiece back there.
I mean, they could.
You'd have to go all in. Like, you'd have to...
Listen, Plank. We're calling out to you. So I was looking up Megan on Twitter, and I can't find a Twitter handle.
I'll stalk her. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Okay. So, listen,
I'm just kidding, Megan. I'm sure...
If you do listen to this, we're just kidding.
Kidding.
But go to the show notes if you're listening to this. If you're a fan of the podcast, we'll try to find some contact information. Let her know we've been talking about this. Corey made how many calls to the BDC when we were discussing this? Dozens of calls,
more.
And we've been trying.
I'm pretty sure they were looking at the caller ID and going like, "This guy again."
But Corey has been wanting to get this done. And Megan, if you know of anybody. If you want to get active, if anybody hearing the sound of my voice wants to get active on this project, let's get organized.
Yeah.
Let's get it done.
I would happily be involved in fixing this thing.
Right.
Even if I have to go in with my hammer myself.
Just let us go in. That'd be nice.
Just root around.
Yeah. And there's plenty of old growth timber in there.
There's an old 70 millimeter projector around there somewhere.
And timber that's like 100 years old. You know how awesome it would be to, take some of the roof that had caved in and make it part of the new building.
Yeah.
Just decorative, the old. It'd be fantastic. You could refurbish the entire inside. But so if you guys want to get active on it, let us know. Corey@otheanthem.com.
Or the Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Or 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. That's a listener line. You can call, leave a message, and we'd be happy to get in touch with you. So,
yeah.
Speaking about changing Baltimore, though, the topic of the hour that we really wanted to dive into is the Port Covington project in South Baltimore.
Yes. So, Rob and I both basically land in the same general headspace as far as Port Covington goes. We're not going to share that thought up front because we thought we'd try something new.
Okay.
People like when we argue.
Do they?
I mean, we used to gather crowds around Hofstra.
Yeah.
When we would stage fake arguments outside.
Debates.
Pontificating around smoking.
Pontificating debates. That's exactly what they were, yeah.
So we figured we'd bring that joy back. Mm-hmm. Bring it back to when Rob was a shitty liberal douchebag and I was a uncaring conservative jerk.
Was both of those facts?
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So what we're gonna do is we have a coin.
There it is.
Heads and tails, standard coin. How do you want to do this? Are you heads pro Covington, tails anti Covington?
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
Okay. So let me flip this coin real quick.
Are you flipping? You're flipping for yourself. And
Okay,
then,
so I'm flipping for me
and
to decide.
whatever it lands is what is your side. That's what you're
Okay,
doing.
so pro heads, con tails.
There you go. Yeah.
And then so we're deciding for me.
That you're signing for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't lose your mic.
Or my Red Bull.
Or the Red Bull.
Heads.
So you're pro. You are pro.
I'm pro Port Covington for this.
Are you going to be able to make that
for
argument?
this segment? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
Oh.
So, a little background information for those of you who are new to the podcast, maybe.
You might have to explain a TIFF to people as well.
Yeah, so we can dive into this. So, Port Covington, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the city of Baltimore, or maybe just slightly familiar, check out our information screen right here. Again, as we talked about on YouTube, right here. This is why it's going to be important. So, basically, everything that runs below 95, but is in Baltimore proper, is part of Port Covington.
North of Cherry Hill.
North of Cherry Hill, north of the Patapsco.
Yeah.
I guess is what it is.
Like Hanover Street is pretty much the bridge is sort of like the dividing line there.
Right. So what you'll see up here on this map is that there is a bridge that runs basically north to south. That's the Vietnam Veterans Bridge, otherwise known as the Hanover Street Bridge. And that runs into an industrial area.
Assuming that it's still standing.
By the time we get back.
Yeah, by the time this podcast airs.
Yeah, I love the kayakers who
it's
are
like the Mayfair of bridges.
Yeah. The kayakers are like, I made it under the bridge and nothing fell on me. Hey, it's a good day. Yeah, infrastructure, good. So when you cross the Vietnam Veterans Bridge, Hanover Street Bridge, into Baltimore, everything that you are in there is Port Covington. Mm-hmm. And then when you hit 95, that's when you get into the greater Federal Hill area of Baltimore.
Right.
So this is kind of considered... I call it South Baltimore, but basically what people have told me is you have to cross the bridge so you rarely get to South Baltimore. But
well, I mean, there's not really much of the Baltimore after Hanover. I mean,
really just what's out in Cherry Hill.
Yeah, I mean, you got Cherry Hill, and then if you continue along, I mean, basically Brooklyn happens,
and then at that 7-Eleven, you're in Anne Arundel County,
right?
But there's that little swath that goes on the ocean side. So, but yeah, so this is what we're talking about. Across the Patapsco, kind of to the west, is Westport, which is owned by Plank. And to the north is Fed Hill. 95 is kind of the northern boundary of the area that we will talk about as being Port Covington. The Patapsco River is the western border and the southern border. And then it kind of... Is it still the Patapsco? I guess it kind of opens up into like the outer harbor on the east side. It's still kind of the Patapsco, but it's also the...
Well, I mean, it's all the Patapsco because, I mean, it's sort of... I think it's at the Key Bridge where it really, like...
Well, but we call... So, what you think of as the harbor is technically a tideland for the Patapsco River.
Right.
But the harbor kind of comes out there at Port Covington. The Patapsco kind of comes out there at Port Covington. It's all that same area. But it's all waterfront.
Yeah.
It's 95 to the north and a peninsula with waterfront in it.
Yeah.
And right now, it is a bit of a mess. When we lived, the last time that we lived in Baltimore, when we were living in Ridgely's Delight, that was actually the Walmart that I used, I assume the one that you used, was there in Port Covington. And no one knew it was there.
There was, I think, there was a some sort of store that was so old that I want to say it was like an Ames or something like that. Like,
okay.
That big building that wasn't the... across the way from the Walmart.
Well, there was a Sam's Club there with the Walmart.
Right, but I'm saying like across the... Like if you were walking out of Walmart, there was that big, huge... You remember when I was trying to refresh myself on how to drive a manual?
Yes!
And we went around the building?
God. Yeah,
I feel like that was like an Ames or something like that, which shows how old and vacant it was.
Yeah, it was an old building, yeah. I don't think it was open, though.
No, it was closed, but I'm saying like I feel like it was something that was from such a long ago period.
Yeah.
That it clearly had not been used for anything in 15, 20 years.
When Walmart came in, they did as they usually do, which is to build a new building. And Sam's Club was built there and Walmart was built there. And literally, I would talk to people when we were living in Ridges Light in our neighborhood, and then when we were at Park Charles in the building, I'm like, there's a Walmart 10 minutes away. You don't have to go out to the county. It's down in South Baltimore. I'm like, what? Nobody wants to go to Port Covington. That's not a place that you really end up. So that Walmart's now closed.
Yeah, and then probably the most notable landmark is the Baltimore Sun printing.
Right. And
headquarters.
If you are a fan of the nightlife in Baltimore, Nick's Fish House is also there, which I've been there twice, and I had a great time both times. So that's there right. It's like hugging the Hanover Street.
Yeah.
We don't want to go any further to Port Covington. We're hugging Hanover Street.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of like old railroad yard and old port facilities, and obviously you can't get big ships up there. They stay out to the east in where the bigger harbor facilities are now. But there are a couple of piers,
like where the cruise ships are and stuff.
Yeah, that's all further. But there's all this kind of abandoned mess of stuff, and as happens in the city, nothing good happens when you have that kind of situation. It's crime, it's vagrants and homelessness and drugs and just all kinds of bad stuff. And also Under Armour.
Yeah.
So Under Armour actually took over the old Sam's Club building, and now they have some sort of warehouse there. But Kevin Plank, the savior of Baltimore, the converter of Locust Point, if you will.
Yeah.
Who is... And we're going to use some terms interchangeably, and I think we should clarify that too. Kevin Plank is a person, and he started a company called Under Armour, which everybody is now familiar with. So he started a company called Under Armour, and this very small fitness apparel company blew the fuck up. And He made a lot of money. And he always kept the headquarters here in Baltimore. He always made the stuff here in Baltimore, all that stuff. So he then took his money and invested in a development company called Sagamore. And Sagamore, he is the principal investor, the principal owner of Sagamore. So we have Under Armour, we have Sagamore, and we have Kevin Plank.
Yeah.
We can kind of use these terms interchangeably, but they are separate entities, legally speaking.
Right.
So Kevin Plank is interested in helping Baltimore.
Right.
He is the same guy that we keep calling on to
invest in the Mayfair.
Yes, exactly. Because he's very wealthy, and he has. You know what else is there? The Kevin Plank's whiskey distillery is now over by Nick's Fish House,
which is also, I think, called Sagamore, but for legal entities is a separate company from Sagamore Real Estate. Goddamn
rich people. So there is all of this real estate, which is just kind of lying dormant because there's no industry there, and it's a blight, and it's part of an economic recovery zone, which nobody's taken advantage of. Walmart tried and failed miserably. And the lesson we've learned in a lot of places is you need people to be there. And even the people who live just on the other side of 95, bridge too far.
Yeah.
They're not coming over there. Nick's is there because it's a destination. People come there for it. The distillery is now a destination. People will come there for it. But you can't have like a Jimmy John's. Because nobody's just going to find themselves at Jimmy John's. But Locust Point is actually out on the same end of this peninsula, but it's way out and it's further north. And that's where the current Under Armour headquarters are. And if you were there 10 years before that was built, the Silo Point stuff was built, nothing there.
Yeah.
And now it's beautiful row homes. And
I mean, it's essentially an extension of Fed Hill.
It is.
Because Fed Hill had a renaissance going on. Mm-hmm. But it's just, I don't know. Locust Point has basically become like the junior version of Fed Hill.
It is.
And there's a lot of development that's happening in that area to build. I think Bazuta's building another high-rise
right
apartment.
There on the corner of Lawrence and Fort.
Yeah.
And McHenry Row is there, and they have like a Harris Teeter. It's very nice. It's a very nice area. And where once I would have told you to avoid Locust Point, now it's a very nice place to go. There's a nice park. And the City That Breeds podcast is doing a beer run in that park at McHenry Row on August the 8th. So is that coming? Oh, wait, that's this week. Never mind.
Yeah.
You guys missed that. Sorry, guys. But
snooze, you lose.
Yeah. So getting back to it. So Kevin Plank wants to do what he did at Locust Point for all of Port Covington.
Right. Basically, he wants to build a city within a city.
That's it, yes.
Yeah. That's the common refrain that you'll hear in a lot of articles written about Port Covington. City amongst a city.
Yeah.
Because it's very much separated from the rest of the city.
But due to no factors of planks. He doesn't want to build a wall. 95 just kind of cuts it off from the rest of the city.
Exactly.
But as we'll discuss, there are ways he's trying to connect it to the rest of the city and make it more connected. But it will be kind of set apart. It'll be a place that you either live and... when I was working for the MTA, or when I was doing the MTA budget, we did transit-oriented development, where you wanted shopping and housing and all this and work all in the same place. And ideally, you would get somebody who rented an apartment, worked in an office, and shopped at a store, all within walking distance to each other. So maybe they own a car, but maybe they don't. And that way you can walk everywhere you need to go. That's what this is. It's meant that people can live there and work there and play there, and they never have to leave Port Covington. And as we'll talk about later, hopefully the poor people stay away. So another term, just because we kind of talked about it, is TIF. The big thing that we've talked about over the past couple of weeks is the Port Covington TIF.
Yeah.
And a TIF is tax incremental financing.
Yes.
So essentially what that is that the city will essentially gives them it's not a break on property taxes, but it says, we are not going to charge you property taxes in the same sense. We are going to create this black zone where any property taxes you pay in go into a special fund. Mm-hmm. And that special fund will only be used on projects in this part of town. Now, a lot of that money is paid up front. Most of the money, honestly, is paid up front. So, as we'll talk about, they're going to do
in this case, the first round of TIF financing is $536 million.
Yeah. And what they want to do is you're going to have to redo all the streets, all the sewer lines. Everything will have to be redone.
Right.
So
essentially what the city is being counted on for in this TIF funding is what's called horizontal development.
Right.
Which is everything that's on the ground level. Mm-hmm. The infrastructure, the streets, the plumbing, all that sort of stuff.
Right. So essentially what and what Sagamore is the one doing Port Covington. They are a development corporation like Bazzuto. They build buildings, but they also just develop projects.
Yeah.
And so what they're saying is, we want to invest a lot of money in this area, but we can't do it with the road scheme that you have now. So we need to change all that. So we need to partner with the city in order to make changes to the roads, and we'll all agree that this is the plan we're going to follow. So, city, you're doing the roads. Actually, we'll do the roads. You pay for the roads.
Right.
And we'll do the parks, and you pay for the parks. And we'll do the water lines, and you pay for the water lines, and the sewer lines, and everything else. So this black box basically says, you front us $530 million. And that money is going to be used for horizontal infrastructure projects.
Yeah.
And we will pay that back over the next 20 years, essentially. So until 2038, all the property taxes will go to repay this TIF. So they don't go into the general fund. They go to pay back these projects. And anything that's really above and beyond that, should it, hopefully, the values skyrocket and they're actually paying more than that, the money has to stay in that area until the agreed upon year, which I believe is 2038. So the TIF expires in 2038. So
and then there is like a higher end on the property taxes beyond that for an extent for a period of time.
Until for another few years, for 2041 is basically the cutoff of everything.
You're basically paying more in property taxes for the last little bit of it to make up for the fact you'd be paying a higher percentage than you normally would if this was already sort of built.
Right. Yeah. But it's very beneficial to the companies because essentially with a TIF financing, they don't have to pay for any of the stuff that is required for them to build.
Yeah.
They get what will end up being like a $9 billion project, the first phase, $9 billion project.
Right.
And they don't have to pay for any of the stuff that's required for them to actually do it. Like, you can build the most beautiful building in the world. If there is no water to get to your apartments, nobody's going to live there.
Yeah.
And you got to have streets to get there. And, all of these things. And so without that, nobody's going to move there. And if you're charging $1,255, which is the estimate for a studio apartment, you also have to have some other things, like public areas, bike trails, and all that kind of stuff.
Parks.
All of that will be paid through TIF funds.
There's an environmental wharf or something like that, which I don't understand what it is exactly, but
I imagine it's going to be like what they're doing at the aquarium, where it's like a living seashore.
Oh, okay. Maybe put a water wheel there.
They are putting a water wheel on the Falls. Yeah, they actually are.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
No, I'm sorry, they're putting a trash wheel.
Mr. Trash Wheel.
Yeah.
So maybe make that one a Mrs. Trash Wheel.
Can we get these two paired up?
Yeah.
But so the problem with the TIF, and let's just start with the TIF, not the project in whole, but the problem with the TIF is this. It means that the property values for Baltimore go, or the estimated property tax goes way up. Because now we have $9 billion in property. So we should be collecting a lot more money. But you're not collecting that money. It's going into the TIF
Not
fund.
immediately.
Right. But the important thing is it impacts other calculations that are based on property values and property taxes, like schools.
Yeah.
The school funding is based on property taxes. So when the state says we're going to divvy up money, Baltimore City would be missing out on whatever the calculation
percentage of the $9 billion
of that $9 billion, 536 million, whatever they would get. A city that needs money for schools probably more than anywhere, and I mean, well, they spend a lot, but clearly there's a problem, and if we cut money, that's not going to help the issue. And you would be most likely adding a school. I think part of the plan is to add a school facility there, an elementary school, because this is meant for young professionals and young families. So if not, then they would certainly have to do some revamping on the Federal Hill Elementary School to have enough space for new students. And, I think that Plank would probably, or Sagamore would probably direct that the money be used for that. But it's impacting the city negatively in that way.
Right.
The other side of it is we got a lot of sinkholes in Baltimore.
Yeah.
There's some infrastructure problems that need to be addressed.
Well, let me first counterpoint you on this TIF thing.
Okay. All right, that's right. You're taking the positive side. That's right. I forgot. Go ahead. Sorry.
Because I feel like everything we said so far has basically set up the situation.
Yeah.
So now we can sort of get into the actual.
So my negative point is it's negatively impacting students by taking money away from them.
Right.
So that's the start of the diversion.
Essentially, how the money is happening for this is through bonds, selling of city bonds, and then recuperating the money at a later point with interest and profit and everything like that, so that we would have additional money to be able to fix problems around the city.
Theoretically, yes.
Theoretically, yeah. I mean, everything is sort of dependent on it working, but it seems to have a very good plan in place for how it would develop business and create a new area of town which would better improve the city as a whole.
Well, and keep in mind, the guys who live in a 1255 for a studio aren't working at the Harris Teeter in Port Covington.
No.
Somebody's coming from Cherry Hill or West Baltimore to work at the Harris Teeter. They're then spending the money they make there, theoretically, in Baltimore somewhere else. Sales tax. They're expanding businesses elsewhere. So it's channeling money back in the city.
Yeah, but it's also expected to bring in a large amount of higher level people who would be taxed higher,
right,
and would further the pot, basically.
Right.
So the ideal Port Covington resident, as sort of stated by Sagamore, is the $100,000 family, the young millennial, who is, looking for a certain level of sophistication
in a studio apartment.
Well,
goddamn, yeah.
If you're one person, if you're not the family, then the studio,
yeah.
But it's essentially Harbor East.
It is.
And, everybody, for a long time throughout the, Schaefer was vehemently against TIFs.
Right.
He didn't like the idea of sort of like, it's sort of in a layman's term sense. It's like you have a trust fund.
Yep.
You could either keep the money in the trust fund and let it gain interest and gain, if you have it in stocks or something like that, just get dividends on it and still it just keeps adding up.
Yeah.
Or you could take some of that money out. You could invest it.
Buy a house in Fed Hill.
Yeah. And then when that house goes from being worth $5,000 to being worth $500,000, you sell it and the profit goes back into that trust.
Right. Yeah.
So, essentially, it seems to bring back a lot of people that the city desperately needs. the higher end tax base. And it does it in a way that it doesn't affect anything that wasn't basically just going to be laying there vacant.
Right.
And you're putting them in a position to, sort of be right in the thick of everything. So if you live in Port Covington, you're right there by the Ravens Stadium. Right. You're right by M&T. You're right by the Inner Harbor and Fed Hill, and it's a great location to expand to. And I mean, the modus operandi of the city for the last 40 years has essentially been build along the water.
Right.
Which is why we had Harbor Place initially, have Harbor East, Harbor Point, and now Port Covington. And why there's been so much talk about Westport.
Which is also owned by Sagamore.
Right.
And but
Westport was having a lot more trouble with community associations.
Right.
And being able to build.
And in fact, the fifth phase of the plan is to build a pedestrian and bike bridge from Port Covington to Westport to hopefully say, hey, listen, so we're just going to put houses here. And then people can do their shopping, all of that stuff in Port Covington.
Yeah.
And so we don't need to have so much big development. It'll just be residential and light retail. So,
but once the Schaefer era essentially ended, Kurt Schmoke was the first mayor to really sort of embrace the TIF.
And let's refer back to our Old Town Mall episode for our thoughts about that shift from Schaefer to Schmoke.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very real point, but I mean, what the TIF financing that Schmoke was using, basically spearheaded by Pete Rawlings. I don't know if that last name sounds familiar, but it certainly should. Do your job or quit. It allowed Harbor East is amazing. It is, as far as like what the city could be, kind of thing. I remember my mom, she lived in New York City in the 60s and 70s, and she talked about like how horrible it was.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it was very bohemian. It was, strip clubs and homeless. And as New York became more industrial or more corporate, it raised so that there were these very expensive areas of town. I mean, like basically all of Manhattan.
Yeah.
But this is sort of the beginning stages. You build little pockets and hope that the rest sort of expands outward.
That's a big hope, though. Essentially, what this is doing is it's taking the white L and it's making it bold. We're not expanding out into anywhere else in Baltimore. You are taking the L that for those of you who are unfamiliar, Michael A. Wood has talked a lot about. He's really pushed the black butterfly white L in Baltimore. But the white L comes down Charles Street and makes a hard turn out into Fed Hill and then Locust Point.
Yeah.
And we are just basically...
Harbor East, Fells Point, Canton.
Right, along the water on both sides.
Yeah.
And essentially we're just making it bold because we're adding another... doubling
and
up.
And it goes beyond Charles. It goes like up the Jones Falls.
Right.
Essentially. So you got like Roland Park and Hamden and...
Check out the infographic, but literally there is a big swath through the middle of the city, and then it makes a hard at the Inner Harbor, basically Pratt and Light. It makes a right turn and just kind of goes along the Inner Harbor out to Fells Point, Canton, and now we're expanding it out into.
And if you want to see what the black butterfly portion of it is, feel free to go to the Vacants to Value website and look at where all the properties are.
Yeah.
Because you'll just see smatterings that look like butterfly wings.
That's it.
That's the black butterfly.
Right. So, but we're making that problem worse because we're investing in another place, and Kevin Sagamore has specifically said we want to be exempt out of the low income requirements because the people we're trying to attract, your young millennial and your young $100,000 family, don't want to live next door to. Like, let's just be frank about it. They don't want to live next door to a poor black family on Section 8. And they are saying we are going to enforce this white. We are redlining in 2016. That is all that this is. It's redlining in 2016.
It's not though, because I mean,
$12.55 for a studio apartment, and that's not redlining.
What you're going to see when this whole development is done, and by done I mean like basically around this 2040 mark.
Yeah.
Where the TIF financing is done, you're going to see increased property value of areas around Port Covington too. Now, there's not a whole lot around it. I mean, Fed Hill is already
Yeah.
But, I mean, you're going to see tremendous growth in Cherry Hill. You're going to see tremendous growth in Brooklyn.
What happened to that tremendous growth due to Harbor East? Let's talk about Perkins Homes. What kind of tremendous growth has impacted Perkins Homes?
Well, I mean, it was up for a redevelopment bid, but that has fallen through.
Right.
So, I mean, Perkins Homes for the time being is still Perkins Homes for the foreseeable future.
And redevelopment meant that the same families were going to be able to live there?
No.
It was going to be demolished.
Yeah.
And those families were going to be forced to go elsewhere.
Right.
We were going to be expanding the white L again. So what you're telling me is now the poor and black families that live in Cherry Hill are going to somehow benefit in the same way?
What you're going to get is you're going to, yes, expand the white L, but hopefully in the way that you expand it is being able to make the black butterfly disappear.
So we're just going to force all the black people out of the city of Baltimore?
No.
Or we're going to pocket them, maybe build some walls around them so that they can't impact the rest of the city?
No, not at all. We're going to have more jobs based off of Port Covington.
Jobs for them.
There's going to be jobs for everybody.
Okay.
You don't think there's going to be a Starbucks there?
Well, and so Sagamore's also gotten around the work requirement that requires you to hire from people who live in the city.
Right.
So now they'll be able to hire white people from the county, which is very nearby, as we described, across the Hanover Street Bridge, public transportation widely available from the county up there.
Right.
So they can hire white people from Brooklyn Park, right? Brooklyn Park is in the county.
Yeah.
And Glen Burnie to work instead of hiring people from the city. And now that money is just leaching out to Anne Arundel County instead of being in Baltimore County instead of being in the city.
Yeah, but I mean, if I told you that you had to hire certain people, then it would severely impact your ability to staff the way you wanted to.
It's a city of 600,000 people. You
Yeah.
can't find people to work at your store?
I'm not saying you can't, but I'm saying if you want to have the way this succeeds, the way you make your money back is by having the best possible version of what's envisioned.
The way Sagamore makes money.
The way the city makes money.
All right, how is the city making money from this deal? Because it sounds like we're paying $530 million in a TIF, plus bonds of at least another $200 and some million.
Yeah.
So how is the city making money? Because we're risking our bond rating. The city won't even do the bond. The BDC is going to do the bond because the city's risk.
It's not even the BDC. It's actually another section.
Okay.
It's actually through the state more than it is through the city.
So the bonds are public, and the TIF is public. And how is the city itself going to benefit?
Well, if you are bringing in a lot of people who can increase the tax base,
okay,
then you're going to be able to expand city services to a lot more people. Part of the reason why Baltimore is failing is because the population continues to fall.
Because of white flight.
To a degree, yes.
Okay.
But I'm saying if you build up the average income of the city residents, which you would do significantly by sort of catering to a $100,000 family,
right,
you are going to increase the amount of taxes that you draw from these people, and then that means more taxes for the school, or more money for the schools, more money for infrastructure,
more money for
for
schools, not money for infrastructure, because it's in the TIF zone. So that won't happen until after 2041.
Yeah.
So maybe after 2041, yes.
Do you think at 2041 just everyone who was there decides to leave?
I think that it becomes less economically viable after 2041.
It becomes less economically viable for the corporations.
Right, because that's also when the tax deals for the economic recovery zone end, and when the brown zone tax benefits end.
But by that point, you've essentially... So, look at Harbor East as a successful version of this. It has spent its time in the TIF.
It's still in the TIF.
It'll
still be in the TIF.
Yeah, but not for much longer.
Okay.
But it has built itself up. It is now sustainable.
We think. We don't know. Because when that brown zone tax benefit ends, you don't know what's going to happen. We may end up with a beautiful, empty part of town.
It's possible, but I don't imagine that it will be. Because people have what you've been able to build in Harbor East is a expectation of what it should be.
Okay.
And if you want to go to, there's a Four Seasons there.
There is.
That's
very nice.
Yeah, and
very nice.
There's nice restaurants and nice bars, and
we recommend raw sushi. Very good.
All kinds of nice apartments and condominiums and the whole thing.
And that movie theater.
Landmark. Yeah, the Landmark is very nice.
But now that the people are there, we now have to attract new people because we don't want the people from Harbor East moving to Port Covington. That doesn't do any good. But that is likely to happen. Here's the thing. We're combating white flight. People, when redlining ended and the neighborhoods desegregated, white people moved to the suburbs. So Sagamore's answer is we now have this insulated part of the city. 95 cuts it off from the rest of the city.
Mm-hmm.
We are getting out of the low-income requirements. We are pricing studio apartments at $1,255.
Mm-hmm.
We are going to have Whole Foods, Harris Teeter, something like that. High-end shops, high-end jobs.
Right.
So you are essentially creating a redlined district in the south part of the city. So you're saying we are going to combat the loss of the higher incomes to try and build the coffers by recreating another redline district where white people are there and they're safe. And they don't have to have contact with any other parts of the city. That's essentially what you've built.
Right.
And that's a good thing. Because in 2041, it could theoretically pay off.
As far as finding a way to invest back in the city, it's hard to sort of beat this plan. Because as far as the infrastructure goes, as far as all the things that we constantly complain about that need to be fixed, a huge reason for why they aren't being fixed is because there isn't enough of a tax base.
But the people who live in the TIF zone won't have to pay their higher income tax rates. They won't have to pay. We'll get a tax break for living in a TIF zone, for living in an economic recovery zone.
Right.
So there won't be that much extra money for the city.
Not initially.
In 2041.
Yeah.
When the millennial 25-year-old who moves in there is 40, you're saying that it's going to pay off. Yeah. Theoretically. Maybe.
Right.
So what if instead of doing the TIF there, we did the TIF somewhere in West Baltimore? Why can't we say, you know what? You got a great idea here, Sagamore. We're going to send you out in West Baltimore. Let's build this economic development zone on just west of
Baker Street.
Yeah, just west of Martin Luther King. Access to Martin Luther King and the highway and out, and access to 40 and west. We'll build it right here, and then you really impact people. There's a lot of vacants there that can be gotten rid of.
Yeah.
You can boost economically that part of the city because now you have workers who are walking or taking public transportation a very short distance to get to these jobs. The jobs, we keep in the low-income requirements. And you know what? If you want to stick those low-income part in your part of the zone that's on the other side of 40, fine.
And how is that different from what you were talking about with us uprooting Perkins Homes?
Because most of that,
because essentially
what
you're going to do is you're going to make a lot of people in West Baltimore leave.
I'm going to under eminent domain they get paid for their house,
right?
Yes, and we're replacing it with some low income housing.
And rather than eminent domain, with Port Covington, what you're doing is taking something that is nothing,
right,
and building upon it. It'd be like if there was just an empty swatch of West Baltimore that was available,
right,
and you built upon that.
Okay,
this is the open spot that is available, and it's on the water, which is more desirable than it would be in West Baltimore.
So let's find it.
So if you want to bring, the bottom line is, if you want to bring in this level of resident, into the city, you're going to have to do it by putting them in a place they want to be.
Okay.
And by the water is one of the prerequisites.
With no poor people.
No, it's not about whether or not they're...
So let's include the low income.
Cherry Hill's right there, and it's one of the poorest neighborhoods in the city.
But then why do we need to waive the low income requirements? Why do they need a special thing to get rid of the low income requirements?
Because they're trying to go back to Manhattan.
Yeah.
Right? When my mom lived there, there was the Upper West Side.
Yeah.
That was where the rich people lived.
Yeah.
My mom lived in the south part of the island, down near Battery Park and Wall Street and everything like that. She was an actress and a waitress. She could afford an apartment there.
Yeah.
Now, no way. Not a chance.
It's an upcoming part of town.
Yeah. And, you can't live in Greenwich Village. You can't live in Tribeca. You can't live in these things, these developments that, with the benefit of New York being New York, you're able to just sort of build up naturally. With the city of Baltimore, you have to sort of create these opportunities.
Okay.
You have to build up each individual little thing. If you look at Harbor Place, when they were looking to build it, people thought it was a horrible idea.
Yeah.
They thought, what is this? It's just going to be like a freaking mall in the middle of the city. What's it going to do for anybody who lives around it? But if you look at how Fed Hill was able to revitalize itself, which turned into Locust Point being able to revitalize itself, which turned into Harbor East, and then Harbor Point, and then an extension into Fells Point, an extension into Canton, Otterbein, Ridgely's Delight, upward into the city. Like this, it has a growing effect.
Yes, you just described the white L. You just said we have invested solely in the white L.
No, you've created something that allows for people to grow around it. It's not designed to make people leave. It's designed to improve the area there.
Listen,
you could have bought.
Voter ID laws are not meant to keep black people away from the polls, but they are. Because the majority of black people do not have as easy access to IDs as white people do. So when you say we are dropping the low income requirements and your studio apartment is going to be $1,255 a month, which is more than most of those low income families make in a quarter, let alone a month.
Yeah.
Then you are essentially saying, listen, we're not saying we're focusing on anybody of any race or any socioeconomic group, but we don't want them here.
It
has the same effect.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we half the TIF amount.
Okay.
The total TIF amount, which I think they're sort of pre-forecasting as like $750 million or so.
Yeah.
Imagine it was 375.
Okay.
And you're building it a lesser version of Port Covington.
Okay.
Designed to the $50,000 family as opposed to the $100,000 family.
Okay.
What benefit does that have to the tax base of the Baltimore City?
It has the same theoretical impact as what
you have more people, but you don't have a higher percentage of income going back to the city.
Why? Because if I have double the people at half the income, that makes up the difference.
So instead of a Harris Teeter, you're just building a Safeway.
Sure.
I mean, what draw does this have to people who are looking to move to Baltimore?
If people are looking to move to Baltimore, there are places for them to go now. Harbor Point is not full. Harbor East is not full.
Right.
Canton is not full. We are creating more spaces to try and draw these people, and I get that. But why do we have to say, no, we're not making opportunities for up-and-comers? It's always been about, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and we're going to give you opportunity. If you take advantage of it, you do it. This is essentially saying, no, we don't even want to give you the opportunity.
You know what up-and-comers do? They turn neighborhoods that weren't good into good neighborhoods.
Okay.
Pigtown, for example, was not a desirable place to live 15 years ago.
Right.
Just as recently as 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Now it is really turning itself around very quickly. You can still,
How
at
much
this point,
How much TIF money did Pigtown get?
None, but it it independently built itself upon people realizing that they could move there for cheaper. They were close to everything they wanted in the city, and then that's how it goes. So, you build the city out. It goes from a development like Harbor Place, and then balloons out into other things that extend outward.
Yeah.
Eventually, you go from it influencing Otterbein to a stadium district to Ridgely's Delight, and then it goes across Martin Luther King, and now Pigtown is becoming a thing.
Right.
Sooner rather than later, we're going to have Barry's going to be okay, and then it's just going to continue outward.
Okay.
And people who bought in early at a lesser rate are going to be able to stay there. The home that they bought for $150,000 is going to be worth way more.
Yeah.
10, 15 years from now.
So if Sagamore and Plank really want to just do it for the city, don't require so much.
Well,
they're going to make. They're capped at 9% profit, which is $450 million a year.
Right.
That's Sagamore.
Yeah.
So when Sagamore leases space to Under Armour, which it will, or it leases space to Sagamore Distillery, a distinct. A separate body.
Yeah.
Or when Plank creates 5 new businesses that all lease space, they can all take advantage of that 9% profit.
Yeah.
So now they're making way more than that, and the citizens of Baltimore are still getting screwed from the whole deal.
How are they getting screwed?
If they're able to profit from it, then they don't need the damn TIF. If you're going to make $450 million in the first year,
there's no way. There's no way for them to make this without TIF.
Why?
Because the math that has been constructed to figure out how viable this project is,
viable to make a profit, viable to make a good profit,
viable to happen at all.
Okay.
If there is no TIF money, if there is no horizontal investment in the area through the TIF, then Sagamore is expected to lose something like $130 million to this project, which is basically $130 million of charity that they would be giving to the city of Baltimore.
Plank wants to improve the city.
Yeah, but not at $130 million of his own money.
So instead of TIF, let's do bonds. Let's figure out what the horizontal development of each phase is. And as each phase develops, instead of blanketly doing a TIF, we do bond releases. And we say, you need horizontal development in phase 1. Great. It's going to cost us $100 million. We'll do bonds at $100 million. We'll do the streets and the water and everything else. Not your parks. Your parks are yours. Because you know what? I guarantee you if the kids from Penn North come down to play in your fucking park, you're going to call the cops on them.
No.
Bullshit. That happens in Fed Hill. I saw cops rousting kids from the basketball court in Fed Hill, the one that's right across from Rusty Scupper. Because they were the wrong color, playing at the wrong basketball court at the wrong time of night.
What time was it happening?
It's like 9 o'clock. There was still light on the horizon.
Is the court closed at 9 o'clock?
Nope.
What?
I've seen white people playing there at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well.
So here's the thing. So you pay for the parks yourself. We'll pay for the streets. We'll pay for the water. We'll do it through a bond issue. And you and all of your companies you keep paying property taxes the way that you normally would. The
way that this project works, in the way that it happens, the way that it actually works, is by the city making money and Sagamore making money concurrently.
City doesn't make it concurrently. City makes it in 2041.
Yeah,
that's not concurrent.
Well, okay.
That's consecutive. No, so here's again the city takes the risk.
Let me put it this way: both sides need to make money for this to work.
Okay, city takes a risk with the bond. You take the risk by building.
Yeah,
city gets the property tax now. You get the profit now.
Yeah,
that is a risk and a reward on both sides right now.
Yeah,
with the TIF, the city takes all the risk right now. If it doesn't pan out by 2041, the citizens get nothing. You have no risk now. You do your investment, you make all the profit until 2041, and then after that, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to you after 2041 because you made your money and you can get out if you need to. So if we do a bond issue instead, and we get the bonds to do the horizontal development phase by phase, because here's the thing, the TIF is based on 5 phases. If Sagamore, in their infinite wisdom, says, you know what, we're at phase 2, there's just no point in continuing. We're at 60% capacity, we're not going to be able to fill the entire thing, so we're not going to do phases 3, 4, and 5. We're dedicated in the TIF for the full amount until 2041, until 2038.
Yeah.
That's it. There's nothing. But if we did bonds at each individual phase and had them approve at each individual phase, then we could have the horizontal development. There's risk on both sides. There's reward on both sides. And the people of Baltimore, the children of Baltimore, the infrastructure of Baltimore doesn't get impacted.
I like when you get all lawyerly.
By the negative impacts that this thing would have.
So you don't see any negative to a bond?
There is negatives to a bond, but the risk is easier on a bond.
How is the risk on a bond easier than the risk of the TIF?
Because if the rest of the city falls apart,
Yeah.
because we're not getting any property tax from all of this new development, then it's not going to matter that in 2041 it's going to pay off because the city's going to be shit. We take risk on a bond, then there is bond payments, and over the same 30 years that the TIF is going to be running, then we're still making payments on that bond, but the bond payments are actually being paid by the property taxes.
Here's the skinny though on it. If you don't dramatically increase the wealth of the average resident in the city of Baltimore, then you're not going to be able to improve shit.
The way that I'm setting it up for you right now,
Yeah.
everything stays the same after the initial development. After we say go, everything after that's the same.
I mean,
Except for Sagamore takes more risk.
We're
and the
using
city takes
bonds.
less.
We're using bonds right now
For part of it.
Yeah.
For part of it. I'm saying that you say, get rid of this TIF. Everyone pays taxes as they normally would, and we do bonds for the horizontal development. Sagamore wants to do this, and they want to make a shit ton of money. Great. At the end of this, you're going to have a property that's worth estimated $9 billion of the phase one. We will have made several $100 million in capital investments through a bond issuance. There's risk. You're paying property taxes as you normally would. We don't screw the citizens. Everybody's fine.
It's essentially the same thing.
It's not. Because the city takes all the risk for the first 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And Sagamore has no risk. So
Sagamore has plenty of risk.
what risk?
If they build this stuff and nothing happens, then they have a lot of buildings that they spent a lot of money on that they didn't fill.
Okay, so Sagamore's risk is
the
the $125 million that they're going to spend to build it.
It's in their best interest to build up and try and get as many people into these properties as possible to pay for it properly.
And nothing about doing a bond over in a TIF is impacted by that.
If you build infrastructure and then they realize that they're not going to be able to fill that space, guess what? You've just created horizontal development opportunities for the area anyway.
That's why we do phase by phase. So when you are ready to build phase 2, we'll do phase 2 of the horizontal. And when everything gets approved, by the way, approved by a public hearing, not a private one, not fast forwarded through the BDC, an appropriate open meeting where people can comment.
Part of what the speed of this whole process is because this has been working through the current city council.
Right.
And the city council is going to be out in December.
Yeah.
So if you don't finish it before the city council leaves, then you have to start all over again from the beginning.
That should sketch the fuck out of everybody. Because if Plank proposes it coming up close to the election time and then says, well, we got to get this done before
He's been talking about this for years. He's been he's been buying up property for the better part of the last 10, 15 years.
And when did the TIF request come in? When did they start the process for this?
Like early last year?
Summer last year.
Yeah.
When people started gearing up for re-elections, that's when he made the request for the TIF. Because he knows, because he's a smart businessman. Yeah. I'll give it to him. And he's like, keep the pressure on. Yeah. Keep the pressure on. And let's get this done before you're out. Because if you're out, who knows? Maybe I walk away. Because maybe I can't deal with the new council. And maybe I've made special favors to people who are currently there to get this thing done. And maybe the new people coming in can't be bought.
Yeah.
Maybe the people going out, the lame ducks, have nothing to lose. So let's push
Trust me, everybody can be bought.
Bullshit. I can't be bought. That's not true. I can absolutely be
everyone who possibly is in the city council could be bought.
That's absolutely true. And the mayor. Yeah. Except for Josh Harris. Harris for Baltimore. I think he cannot be bought. I don't think there's anything that could buy him. But but that's the thing. If we have to force it through, it's not a good idea.
Okay, so let's just imagine here, you haven't approved my Port Covington idea.
Okay.
You are getting rid of one of the biggest apparel sportswear companies, and
now it's blackmail. If we don't do this, you're leaving Baltimore.
No, but I can't possibly. If I can't grow here,
you can grow here.
How am I going to grow here?
Because I just offered you an alternative that has exactly the same terms, except for we've reestablished that risk falls on all parties, not just the citizens of Baltimore.
But you're penalizing us at the time where we're trying to make up.
Who's penalizing you?
The TIF fund with the lower tax rates in the first half.
It doesn't lower the tax rate though. The lower tax rate comes from it being an economic zone. That would still apply. It also comes from it being a brown zone. That would still apply. All the TIF does is impact whether or not those property tax monies go into the general fund or if they go into the special TIF fund. That's all.
You're not...
So you get the same, you pay the same tax rates that you would because that's controlled by other legislation. The difference is, do we take the risk now? Mm-hmm. Does the city take the risk of giving you this huge capital investment all at once and you have no duty to follow through with all 5 phases?
Yeah, except for loss of significant income.
Why not? You build first phase, it's successful, and you say, you know what, we're done. And you just walk. That's it. And the citizens are out and... We've done all of this thing north of the town that my parents live in, Ridgely. There is a park, industrial park where the city paid to put in sidewalks and roads and high-speed internet, and no companies came because the company said if you build it, we'll come out there. No contracts. They built it. Nobody came.
Okay.
So now they have this huge place that's desolate, but it looks like a nuclear bomb went off. Took out all the buildings, and now all just the roads and the benches and the sidewalks are there. So that's essentially what they're asking us to do. Build all the infrastructure, and as we get to the phases, as it becomes profitable to build the phases, we'll build them, we promise. Mm-hmm. From a company that owes the city nothing. From the company that is willing to walk out of the city if we don't give them what they want. We don't negotiate. We're not the U.S. government. We don't negotiate with terrorists.
It's not terrorism. It's business.
Blackmail.
No, it's not.
You'll leave the city if we don't give you exactly what you want.
It's a business.
So I'm offering you the same deal. I'm splitting risk with you. That's all.
Am I bound to the city under the same pretense?
Nope.
Because I mean, like, if what I need isn't here, and I have to go elsewhere to get it, then why am I betraying the city to do it? I'm looking out for me.
You're right. But what you're saying is, I want this sweetheart deal. If you're
looking as corporations the same as people in this scenario, then Under Armour has to look out for its bottom line. It has to look at there's part of why Baltimore failed so quickly was because we lost so many many companies.
I'm not doing a development deal with Under Armour. Under Armour's just a lessee of a building that the company that I'm dealing with is. Yeah. Sagamore is who I'm doing this deal with. Are you telling me that Sagamore and Under Armour are the same thing?
No, but I'm saying that there's similar.
If I insult Kevin Plank by not giving Sagamore a deal, he's going to take his other company, Under Armour, elsewhere.
No, but a big part of being able to expand Under Armour is being able to have this development.
Which is there, and it's available, and you can make just as much money. It's just less of a sweetheart deal for you, and it takes away your zero risk position and makes you put up some of the risk. And it also makes you say, if you really want the full benefit, you're going to have to build all 5 phases. You can't sell us on this big sweetheart promise and then not do it. If you want the full benefit, then you need to do all of it. And right now, you're not required to do that.
You're asking a company to invest heavily on all stages of the progress, as well as the vertical development, which is all part of...
No, you haven't read the phase plan. It is made to be built in 5 phases.
Yeah.
Phase 1. When phase 1 is completed, then we will move on to phase 2.
Yeah.
But the city gives us the $535 million up front.
Yeah.
And if we never build phase 2, all right. Sorry, we don't build it. There's no requirement that they follow through and finish the project, but the TIF is in place whether or not they...
Not right now, but this is still a fluid deal.
All right, so let's take it back to the BDC. Let's open up the meetings for public comment. Let's publicize the every little bit of the deal, and let's see what all the intricacies are. Let's let somebody who's knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than me, go after it and see if it's the best negotiating position we can have.
If I put in front of the average person a structured annuity.
Yeah.
How many people do you think would realistically grasp what was put on there?
Not many. If I put a
structured annuity isn't the most complicated financial document in the world. I mean, if you put
an 1,100-page healthcare bill in front of you, would you be able to understand it?
If you put a car loan document, a lease agreement in front of people,
okay,
most of them won't understand every single part of the intricacy of it. Right. Why are you expecting?
Because we can pick leaders amongst the people can pick leaders who are knowledgeable enough to break it down.
We have until December to do it.
Why?
Because if you don't...
When the council goes, the deal goes too. That's blackmail.
You have to start it all over again.
Why? No, you don't. It survives. The choice of whether it continues is on Sagamore. If Sagamore has to push it through with this council, that's their choice. The deal is separate and aside from the council. The council may say, the new incoming council may say, okay, great, now we have authority. Let's look through this. What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
This is the worst deal ever. How much did you have to pay off our predecessors to get this deal pushed through? Then maybe that's why he would renege on the deal when it came to December.
No. This is an overwhelmingly complicated thing.
Right.
This is not something that the average person is going to understand.
Are you saying that the new incoming Baltimore City Council is stupid and wouldn't be able to understand the deal?
No, but I'm saying
couldn't be brought up to speed.
I'm saying that there's a lot of people right now who are arguing against this who do not understand A, what a TIF is, and B, how it affects that. You
know what might help that?
What?
Open meetings. Some public information meetings where you explain what the deal is. Here are the intricacies of the deal, and here's what we're going to do. And this is why it benefits you.
It's hard enough to explain a TIF to people in a way that they can understand.
I did it. I just did it earlier today.
Yeah.
About an hour ago, I explained exactly what it was.
Right, but it's not. There's still people who would not understand it.
Okay. And those people can look to people they trust and say, is this a good deal?
Yeah.
And should I support this? And when those people say, yes, it's a good deal, they trust them and they do that. But if you hide the details and we can't say, yes, I'm smart. Yes, it's a good deal. Let's go for it.
The city finance group, which is 3 members of the public on it, a 5-person board, 3 members of the public have all said this is a fine deal.
Yeah. Behind closed doors in violation of the open meetings policy.
They're not supposed to meet in front of the people.
Why?
These are people who are well trained in being able to read these types of contracts, figure out whether or not they are financially viable. This is not meant to be a public display. This is meant to be accountants essentially in a room crunching numbers.
It needs to be public. It impacts the people, and if you are scared, if you're scared,
I'm not scared. You don't. How much of this deal have we been able to figure out just by Googling it?
Yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that the actual details are as public as they need to be.
No,
the documents aren't public. We may not even know the half of it.
I'm not saying that the city is doing right by it. I'm just saying that they need to. This is going to impact the city for the better in the long term.
In 2041.
Yes.
All of those people from the county will have decided that now that they've worked at Harris Theater for 20 years, they want to move to the city. If only there were low-income housing that they could move into in the neighborhood where they worked. But there's not. Sorry.
Well, I think that there's only one group of people who can accurately decide if this is a good idea or a bad idea.
Who's that?
The people who go to otheanthem.com, Corey at otheanthem.com, Oh The Anthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595.
And you can find me on all your social networks at Robert N. Cheek. Make sure you check out robertncheek.com. For more information on me, you can find links to my political blog. You can find links to my news website and to the books, which are available on Amazon.
Buy those books.
And we had a lot of fun today. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Once again, as a reminder, make sure you check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/Oh The Anthem. It's a great way to support the podcast and the podcast network. Make sure you're checking out new episodes of the Dirty Show Underground podcast. New episodes every Thursday at dirtyshownderground.com. New episodes of the Anthem Alliance podcast at anthemalliancepodcast.com. New episodes every Friday.
All right. Well, I think we've done good here today.
We've done something. I don't know if it's good. Especially because, sorry, Kevin, we were just talking. Not meaning
just a point counterpoint.
Just not
good fun.
Don't kill us.
Don't kill you. You're the one who.
Oh, true. Yeah,
I've totally been in support of this deal.
Come at me, bro. But as always, you're listening to the Oh The Anthem podcast, part of the Oh The Anthem digital network. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
Much like the Sagamore company, I'm a grower, not a shower.